Welcome to tonight's Transition Skillshare. The purpose of these sessions is to share the wisdom and experience which is within the transition movement with other groups who are also working for social change, because often we're wrestling with the same issues. We're coming up with great solutions that can inspire and help elsewhere. These Skillshares are brought to you by Transition Together, an organisation set up to support community-led change in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. And we do this by connecting, amplifying, offering practical support to a growing network of transition groups across the country. And these sessions are just one of the ways that we do that. And you can find out more about the other events we have coming up, training, funding, different activities that we do to support local groups and local action.
Tonight is our first Skillshare of 2024. We'll hear from groups connecting with young people and opening up space for them to shape the future of their communities and their groups. Young people are often spoken of as the future, but they're not just the future. They're so much more than that. Young people are the present. They're some of the most interesting, innovative, compassionate and determined people on the planet. They're brave, intelligent and creative. People in their own right and must be respected and protected, and they have so much to offer our communities. But they are facing many challenges, a system that demotes their opinions and doesn't empower action, a culture where we still experience strong echoes of children should be seen and not heard, and a multitude of crises that are already affecting us all, but the brunt of which young people will bear despite not really being any of their own making. So young people, therefore, have a greater stake in our future than we do as adults. And we have a lot to learn about how we can provide opportunities for young people to come together and flourish. We need to find ways to reach young people, to listen to them on a deeper level, to give them a meaningful platform to share their concerns, opinions, and ideas, and offer opportunities to take action and pathways for others to follow. We must find ways to amplify their voices and enable their ideas. But it's hard for so many reasons. But fortunately, we have 3 transition groups represented here tonight that are striving to do just that. Each of them are having inspiring success in different ways. So it promises to be a really interesting session. Sharing their skills and stories with us tonight, we have Cara Hedges of Transition Chipping Norton, Raechal Kelly from Planet Cheltenham, and Ellie Pickering, Cam Elizabeth, and Mike Erskine from Usk Together for the Climate.
And first up, I'm really delighted to introduce Raechal Kelly. Raechal is the project lead for Planet Cheltenham initiative, which is aiming to create a community climate hub for the town. And while they fundraise to convert an unused building there's several projects already going on, including a youth climate group. This free group for 16 to 26-year-olds meets fortnightly and has been running since 2021. It's youth-led, and they've been doing some amazing activities and events, which Raechal's going to tell us about. It includes everything from speaking at the Cheltenham Literature Festival to clothes swaps, surveying all the young people across the county and presenting the results to the Borough Council. Raechal, we're really looking forward to hearing more about what the youth group's been up to. Over to you.
Hi everybody, and thanks for coming along. Always a bit daunting going first, but hopefully you'll all find it interesting. Yeah, our youth climate group, as you mentioned, started in 2021. We actually had the first meeting of what then became Planet Cheltenham a week before lockdown in 2020, so it wasn't ideal timing in terms of setting up the group, but actually I think it sort of steeled us in the end, and we kind of got a lot done in that first year that I think we wouldn't have got done otherwise, and even from that very first meeting back in 2020, one of the common themes that came out of all the residents that came along to that meeting was a focus on youth and youth empowerment. I think we're really lucky in Cheltenham that we have some incredibly engaged young people doing amazing stuff, doing national and globally recognised activism. But what we saw was that there wasn't necessarily, sorry, that's my dog trying to join in. There wasn't necessarily the stuff happening locally for them to join in with, and that was really creating a sort of cognitive dissonance between what they were trying to achieve at a national global scale and then what they were able to get involved with to change what the world looked like on their doorstep. So that's really where the idea for the youth group came from. So yeah, we began online, obviously, because it was still lockdowns in 2021. And I think actually that was quite a good way to start, and made it sort of accessible for young people to kind of get involved. And then we began meeting in person in 2022, and obviously are now still going strong into 2024. So we've got about 26 young people on our WhatsApp group and on the sort of wider mailing list for the youth group. And then I would say we have a core of around 10 people between 16 and 26, although some are now 27 and 28 because we never kick anybody out. So yeah, we're kind of we have had people join who've been younger than 16, but they've had to have a parent come with them until they're 16. And yeah, yes, we do make the parents get involved as well. So yeah, it all came out of a place of wanting to put youth voice at the heart of our community climate work. Because I think, as Danny mentioned in the intro, there's a lot of the kind of head patting and like, oh, you give us so much hope for the future, and that's just not good enough. Like, we can't expect young people to, unsupported, just go out and change the world. We need to be supporting them at a local level to be able to go and do that. So what kind of stuff have we been up to? So there's a few photos here from various events. We've got quite a strong focus on fashion. And I should say at this point as well, the group is youth led. So we don't do anything unless it's their idea, or, we put an idea to them and they want to do it. So it's very much run by young people, yeah, we don't do anything without their say so, and a lot of them are interested in fast fashion and the impact of fast fashion on climate. So we've done clothes swaps, we've done clothing repair events. So there's a few photos of those. We had 250 people come along to the first clothes swap, which was incredible, and absolute chaos, but wonderful chaos. And we've also done a film screening of the film 2040, which I'd highly recommend if you haven't had a watch of that. And we've done a growing project as well in St Paul's, which is the area in which our sort of permanent hub, hopefully, is going to be. And that's not all. We've also had sessions from a climate psychologist called Linda Aspey, who's come in to talk about climate and eco-anxiety, which we know is a real issue for a lot of the young people in our group. So what we try and do is kind of obviously give them tools and a safe space to discuss that, because there's not very many safe spaces to discuss that without grown-ups kind of going, they're there, it'll all be fine, you don't have to worry about it. So it's a space to really validate some of those emotions and feelings around the future. And also then, what Linda's session was great was actually providing tools to kind of deal with some of those emotions in a healthy way and share them with other people. We've also done zine making with the Gloucestershire Wide Youth Group, and that's run by the brilliant Polly from Creative Sustainability in Stroud. So we're increasingly working quite closely with that county-wide group and trying to sort of join the dots so that we're not duplicating effort. We've also had sessions from Gloucestershire Wildlife Trust, because there's also quite a keen focus on biodiversity. So we've done willow wreath making, we've done terrarium making, all from recycled materials. And yeah, that's been really popular sessions. And then we've also, as Chris mentioned, held sessions at the Cheltenham Literature Festival, where the youth group was invited to come and talk about their different activism and hopes for the future. We've also done a project with the Wilson Museum in Cheltenham on a curated exhibit that they did on Wilson's trip to Antarctica, and some of the kind of climate science that was done on those trips more than 100 years ago. And they were invited to share recordings of their hopes for the future, which was really moving. And you can still head along to the Wilson in Cheltenham to hear that exhibition. Another project that we were involved in, let me just check how I'm doing for time. all good, was a survey that was a county-wide survey, so not just Cheltenham, but the whole of Gloucestershire, where we worked in partnership again with the Gloucestershire Wide Youth Group and with Interclimate Network, who run the surveys in schools. And we managed to reach nearly 3,000 young people to find out their views on climate, where they were getting information from, what did they want to see more of. And overwhelmingly, young people across Gloucestershire are already taking climate action. What they really wanted was more joined up action and also more representation. They weren't seeing young people, in positions to do anything about it. So that was really useful and has been really useful. And we took those findings to the Borough Council and to the County Council. I can't say that much has happened as a result, but we were there and in the room and lifting young people's voices and passing the mic. So yeah, and in terms of our other work with young people, we've also run Little Planet Cheltenham sessions, which is baby and toddler sessions, although unfortunately our volunteer hasn't been able to do that for a while. So we ran them monthly in 2022, and then we did some ad hoc sessions in our pop-up space last year, which were really well attended, and that was all thanks to Transition Towns funding, so a big thank you for that. And then we've also done some work with Cheltenham Educational Partnership, which is a local group of all of the 11 secondary schools within Cheltenham, both public schools and state schools, to run sessions around sustainability, around climate, just really trying to kind of empower young people, because I think in school it's, we know that this isn't on the curriculum, that they're not being prepared for the sort of uncertain future that they're going to face. So really trying to kind of go in and this isn't an exercise in terrifying young children or indoctrinating them in any way. It's really about listening to what their perspectives are and what they would like to change, and then trying to make that happen. So some key takeaways that I just want to run through before we move on to the next speaker. I think it's key that any youth group is youth run. So in terms of deciding those themes and events, because if it's stuff that they're not interested in, they're not going to come along. I think it's key to find someone with the key skills. And it might be that you've already got somebody in your group who might be DBS checked, who might have a first aid certificate. And also it's important to be willing to be wrong, and working with teenagers, I've got teenagers at home, willing to sort of look a bit silly sometimes definitely helps. I did get told off by one of the talks that I did in a school. I said that fossil fuel executives had no riz, which if you're a teen, you'll know what that means. And my daughter was absolutely mortified that I had used that word. So I think some understanding of teenagers is really important, and the kind of struggles that they're facing, not just climate, but generally. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a youth worker. We know that youth work is, criminally underfunded in the UK. Especially at the moment, and I think the skills don't, it would be brilliant to have funding to fund a full-time youth worker, but we just don't have that at the moment. So trying to look for people who are able to share those skills is really important. Definitely beware of youth washing and co-opting. We've had approaches from people who sort of want to have a young person at an event, or do something for free, or do some work for free, and we've just sort of flat out said no, that if they want young people involved, they need to be involved properly, need to be paid for their time if possible, or at least travel or food costs and stuff like that to make it accessible. And the young people have to want to do it in the first place. So if they don't want to do it, they don't do it. And you don't need a lot of money. The whole youth project started off with a £500 pot from a local company who donated that money specifically for the youth project. And then last year we were able to do that with the funding from Transition Towns to support the pop-up space and the youth project work last year. But if you don't have the money, you do need the good relationship. So reaching out to other organisations that might exist where you are, and linking up with them. So that was our work with Cheltenham Festivals, or with the museum, for instance, was just saying, look, we've got a group of young people who are amazing and awesome. Can we sort of make something happen? So yeah, thank you for listening. Feel free to check us out on our website. Our main youth stuff happens on our Instagram account at Planet Cheltenham Insta. And I'll pass back over to Chris. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Raechal. I think just wanted to say that that's really inspiring work, and you know, it seems like you've got a great insight not just into young people in Cheltenham, but the whole of kind of Gloucestershire. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. Next up, it's wonderful to welcome 3 speakers from USC, Together for the Climate. We have Eli Pickering, Cam Elizabeth, and Mike Erskine. The group has long had an aspiration of working more with young people in USC. So last summer, with funding from Transition Seed Funding, they handed over plans for a community fun day to an event team led by young people. The fun day was created and planned based on the suggestions of 11 to 18-year-olds living in USC. The venue was an old recycling centre. It was their first step into engaging with young people, but a day that really helped the group imagine what a more permanent base for young people could look like. Over to you, Together for the Climate.
Are you getting up there? Yeah, go on.
Okay, so hi guys, I'm Eli. I'm an A-level student in Cardiff, but I've lived in USC all my life. And I kind of discovered the group through wanting to be a better member of Youth Parliament for my area, as I was the Savannah representative at the time.
And then we're Cam and Mike, and we moved to USC about 3 years ago. We came here from Cardiff, and we were already doing stuff with transition and different activist groups there, but we didn't really feel like there was much going on here in terms of conversations around the climate. So the first thing we did was to team up with some other people and organize a conversation, and 60 people came to that. Mike and I are filmmakers and digital storytellers, so we made a film for that first event, so we're bringing our kind of way of working to the way that we organize things in Us Together for the Climate. The other thing to say really is that Mike and I are not young people, but we're in our late 30s, but in USC, we're kind of seen as young people.
Aging population things. But so yeah, I attended the first meeting in the September of, I believe, 2022, if I'm getting my years right.
No.
Oh, May of 2022. Time flies by. And then I fully started kind of participating in the group in February of last year, which has just been great because the group is nothing but accepting of having me there, despite the fact that I do kind of I'm younger by quite a bit amount. And I mean, we're younger by quite a bit amount compared to some of the other people, but it's been great.
We just want to set a bit more of the scene before we talk about the event that we organise. So yeah, so we've just been going, Us Together for Climate's just been going for a couple of years. We have 6 board members now. We have 30 solid members, and you know, more than that on our mailing list that come to our events. And we have 4 projects that we're taking forward, including a growing project.
And we like the colour green. For these are all the events that we've held since we started, and we kind of go with a green theme for all our posters around the community.
Yeah.
So people recognise who we are. That was one of the ones that we did. We like to put on. We've been really successful at putting on sort of big one-off events, which is why we went with this idea of the Young Person's Day as a one-off big event. This was one we did to support the local farmers market, and with 60 people turned up. We cooked food from locally sourced ingredients, and these are the projects.
But because of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and to give context of USC, people don't know it because it's a sort of place that you drive sort of past rather than. But it is lovely rural. It's actually a town, and its population within the town itself is about 2,600. But then the wider sort of the area that it serves is probably double or triple that. So it does pull in quite a lot of people to come to this place, but still very small. And then, as we were saying before, the age demographic here is skewed towards, as you can see, 50 plus. and the number of young people here is quite small, but we know that they are here, and we know that it was also changing in terms of Usk. There are quite a lot of families here with young people, so we thought, again, that was another reason that it was important to connect with young people here, because it's difficult to sometimes see where they are in this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was just going to briefly discuss some of the other projects we've been working on as individuals and as a group that also include young people. So we've had a logo design competition for the group logo with the local primary school in our area, where all of the primary school children participated in designing these logos to represent the climate group. And we're hoping to have a showcase either online or in person of the logo designs. And they had like an eco board game as their prize as a result of it, which was also very cool. And then another project that we've also been working on recently is in partnership with Gwent Wildlife Trust. We're planning a nature walk with the primary school children where they can learn about local endangered wildlife, like the great crested newt, bit of a tongue twister. And then they're going to create masks of these locally endangered animals. So they're kind of having a fun experience whilst also learning about the local wildlife.
What do you want to say?
Yeah, I was just going to talk about kind of participation. I really liked what the previous speaker was talking about in terms of involving young people, because I think especially when we were planning the Youth Fun Day, I would have not been able to do it without the help of adults in the room as well, because a lot of it was quite complicated, and I think it was helpful to have that support from adults who could make the bookings and stuff with people for because we had a silent disco. So I think, yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the youth part of this project.
Yeah, and just where were we on that?
Oh yeah, so I was saying we're between kind of rung 7 and rung 6, because while some of the kind of how you were talking earlier, where decisions are brought to young people and given them the choice of if they want to take it forwards or not. So that's kind of rung 6-ish, but then also young people lead, like I've done previously with the Youth Fun Day, on aspects of it as well. Sorry. And this is the poster that I created for the Youth Fun Day. The way that we got young people's voice in this project as well was quite interesting. Our local area quite struggles with youth participation. The Youth Council for my county has very few participants on the whole, so that is an issue just area-wide. So we came up with the idea of kind of sending out a survey to young people and dispersing it, because it was hard to get everyone from the rural area to come into one place at once to have a discussion. So we kind of formed the idea of the day surrounding these survey results. And then this was kind of what the day looked like. So we had clothes and banner printing where young people could kind of upcycle their old clothes, because in our area as well, young people have a strong focus on fast fashion and making sure that the clothing that they're wearing is something that they can adapt and grow with, especially when it comes to late teenagers. That's all I was going to say about that one.
Do you want to talk about that? What happened on the day?
No, you say that way.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we also had a local poet who called Adam Kearns, who was delivering a workshop, which was really well attended, and that was, I think it was about 10 young people that went to that one in a teepee tent, which was really nice. Because we weren't sure about whether poetry was going to be a big pull, but actually it worked out really well. It was kind of rap poetry, I think, was what it turned out to be. And then we had recycled sculpture making as well with a local artist. And then, yeah, we finished off with a silent disco, which was a good thing to have silent disco, because the council were, because the area that we did it in was in the middle of Usk, and they were really scared when we started saying disco in the middle of Usk. They started flagging, red flags were starting to appear, but when we said silent disco, it was okay after that. So yeah, and we also I was chief in charge of making pizzas all day, so we were giving out free pizzas to people.
And I guess another thing I'd like to highlight is It also allowed us to make connections with some other of the local groups and some of the local youth workers, because we had a Pride event happening the day afterwards, and so the clothes that we weren't able to swap, we then donated to the rack at the Pride event so that they could be used there as well. So it, like how we were talking about the importance of relationships, I think that's never been more true, connecting with other local groups and making sure that there's no waste in terms of when we're planning these events.
Do you want to say about your youth action?
Yeah, of course. So from this event, and kind of as a group in our meetings, acknowledging the fact that not many young people are present and that it can be quite hard to attend the events, but attend the meetings because of maybe the timing, and also a kind of strong difference between ages in the community. I'm being supported by members of the group to set up a youth action group, which would be earlier on in a Saturday rather than a Thursday night, where I'm able to feed back then to the group about what young people think, without them having to maybe go through the stress of attending a meeting where you might be one of 5 young people in a room with people that might be a bit older than you. And these are just some more pictures from the event.
Yeah, we had some really nice upcycling of equipment.
You can see the sponge
yeah.
there.
Yeah, a sponge made into a doll, and then on the right there was some sort of trolley made out of old things. It's pretty amazing. Yeah, I think that's our images. Yeah.
Okay.
What about takeaways?
Takeaways. I think for us, I suppose the reason we put on the event was because we, in the first place, were kind of acknowledging that we weren't connected to enough young people. So I guess it was already, we already acknowledging it would be a challenge to get young people to come along. So I guess we sort of want to be positive about the fact the number of people that we did get along, and maybe notice that we just need to see this as the first of ongoing events. It just has to be seen in that context, really, as part of the engagement work itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mine would be just start with one young person, and build from there, and just connect with somebody in a deeper way, and then build from there. Yeah.
My main takeaway is the fact that USC does not have many activities full stop, let alone youth-led or youth initiated, or ones for young people, because of, I guess, the demographic. So just having the opportunity to have this event and have it be, at least in my perception of kind of other youth work I've done outside of the group, successful, I think was such a blessing. And yeah, I was really happy for how well the day went. And that's it, I think.
I'm sure I'll stop sharing.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that story. And it's really an exciting start to your journey. And given everything you've already done and the relationships you've already built, exciting to see what happens next. We'll all be watching this space. Lastly, but definitely not least, I would love to introduce Cara Hedges from Transition Shipping Norton. Cara is a former secondary school maths teacher and a home educator, and she retrained as a youth worker during the pandemic, seeing a huge need for informal outdoor education and opportunities for children and teenagers. She's always been passionate herself about the environment, animal welfare, education, and greater social equity, and so has enjoyed developing projects that help promote these themes. The aim of Transition Shipping Norton's youth group is to help young people feel inspired and empowered to make a difference to the world around them. They've been running sessions based on the interests of local teenagers in a local park, which had become very run down, and used these as an opportunity to invite other key community members to come and hear the views of young people in order to shape the council's actions and priorities. So far, they've helped young people campaign for better play equipment and created a bridge of communication between the town council and young residents, particularly in underserved parts of the community. Cara, we are looking forward to hearing how you've gone about it and what's emerged from it. So over to you.
Just see if I can share my screen, okay? Can everybody see that all right? Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so like other groups, we were really hit by the pandemic and found that in Shipping Norton, we lost all of our volunteers, all the projects had sort of ground to a halt. and trying to regenerate things was a real challenge. And one of the things with climate anxiety and combating that, we felt, was to really give people a sense of agency and a way of feeling that they could make a difference, get involved with things. And we felt that young people had been hit the hardest by the pandemic, with a sense of agency being completely taken from them. So our challenge starting off was how can we engage with people that are not wanting to engage, that have completely shut down, that don't even know sort of how to have ideas for themselves for their future, because they've never really been given those opportunities to. They've been shut down. So we put our heads together. We started off looking at ideas involving using their phones, because we felt phones were a safe place where young people felt they could hang out and interact. We put up QR codes and links to look at Google boards and things of, what would you like for your town? What do you think is good about your town? What would you change? And we really didn't have much success at all. So I started going into local youth clubs, and gradually over time was able to build up a bit of trust. And we put up this sort of mood board, and just put something on there, anything. We populated it with a few ideas of our own, things that we felt we could deliver on, lots of nature related ideas, and encourage them to come up with some thoughts of their own. And so it's really quite interesting seeing what were the most popular ideas, what extra things were on there that we hadn't perhaps anticipated. So we had things from, they really wanted a skate park, a bike pump track, they wanted a McDonald's somewhere in the town, they wanted more fun, no school, and they identified a local park that they said it's really not great, and I was quite touched that there were teenagers saying there's not enough equipment for small children to use, so they were quite often looking after younger siblings and feeling that there just wasn't enough there. So we took those ideas away, looked at what we thought was doable. We'd had sort of ideas of working in the local orchard, doing some nature activities, but that highlighted this park, so we thought we'd check it out. And when we went to look, we thought, this really does feel quite bleak. There's no trees to climb, there's no plants to engage with. It's a big rectangle of grass. To be fair, there was actually a seesaw and some swings when we first checked it out, but those soon were deemed unsafe and they were taken away. So we decided, actually, although it wasn't very inviting, it was probably the ideal place to set up activities, and to help these young people reimagine the space that they got, perhaps use it in a more creative way, and try and engage with people in the town that could actually make a difference, and try and campaign for better play equipment for them. So we helped them to construct a bicycle obstacle course, and did some basic bike maintenance. We engaged a bushcraft leader, we put a fire pit there, we invited town councillors and the mayor to come along and say, look, come and hear what these young people are saying, come and see what they want. And the town council were great, and said, actually, we'd really love to find better ways to engage with this community. So they came and they looked at the ideas that were being thrown out, and they were able to explain why this particular park wasn't a good place for a skate park, because it was just too close to housing and too noisy. But they said they would take that forward and they would try and find some land somewhere that we could do a skate park. We looked down the list, we talked about some of the things, why do you want no bushes? I said, because the football always gets stuck in the bushes. So things that we might have felt were positives about the park, they might not have done. So we learned a lot from them about what their priorities were. They asked for bins, and I had a chat with the council, and amazingly, that was one of the things the council said, yes, we can do that, we can do a bin. So that was an early win to show them, look, you are being listened to. It might not be, quite the play equipment that you're hoping for, but at least you've now got a bin and a way of keeping the park tidy. We found, and I think this is true with all groups, all transition groups, if you provide food of some format, it brings people together. And with young people, we found cooking activities the best way to engage people of all ages, all genders. And even if some of the older teens perhaps were a bit too cool to come and do the cooking, they'd always come over and try the food once it was made. So it's a really good way of engaging them in conversations, just having a bit of a light touch. And we'd bring apples from the orchard, so that we can make that connection, or rhubarb from the allotments, and just talk about what was growing locally that they could cook with. The swings got taken away as they were deemed unsafe, so we used the frame to provide a good shade against the heat. There's the bottom of a guinea pig cage in there as well with some water in it. That was a searing hot week, so just looking at ways to keep them safe through the hot weather, and give them skills that they could keep using when we weren't there. We worked with the town council on the skate park idea. They put together funding to do a mobile skate park in the bigger park in the centre of town. So that was during the Jubilee weekend. So we went and engaged with a whole host of families and told them about the work that we were doing, and got a wider engagement behind that one. And suddenly and unexpectedly, the council got funding and started to put the equipment in. So we kept liaising with them. In fact, we'd sent them photos of what the children were most wanting. And while the work was going on, we kept asking the teenagers, can you brainstorm, what other things would you like for the town? While we've got their attention, what else could we try and influence? So one of the things they came up with was they really wanted indoor space, somewhere that they could hang out, if not a McDonald's, something else where they could go of an evening, not be sort of under direct supervision of parents, but just have somewhere out of the rain. They also mentioned that there's the new housing estate that's gone in. I don't know if you can see from the map. So where this park is in that little square, right sort of in the middle of the top. New housing estate is that big long winding road, and the road's going off it at the bottom. And to get to it, you had to go right the way round off this page, either one end or off this page on the other end. And the young people were saying, we can't use the park facilities over there when our park's closed. We can't visit our friends from over there. They can't get to school in a very straightforward route. So we talked to them about, would it perhaps be possible to make a footpath through where the developers have fenced it off? And they were really keen on that idea. So we put a survey together and put that to the council, who then forwarded it to West Oxford District Council to talk about that. One of the things, I'm sure most people here have probably heard of Chipping Norton. You might not know that there's a huge division of wealth and poverty in the town. It's a town of about 6,000, where our estate is. It's in the bottom 5% of the country for deprivation, for educational and employment opportunities. And having swanky new estates cut off from that is, in my view, really quite unhelpful if you're trying to give people good opportunities for the future. So I was really pleased to see the support that we've had from both the town and district council in trying to get that footpath created. So that was heartening. Now hopefully you can see on the right there's a lady who is actually the mayor of the town. She often accompanies me for little walkabouts that we do, both before, during and after the park was constructed. So this is all the lovely new play equipment that went in, and she's come with me to have a chat with the youngsters about what they think about things, what bits work well, to check things are being looked after, asking whether the swings are the right height, whether they want them higher or lower. So it's been a really positive for creating good bridge of communication with the young people. When we do a walk around, there's always some of the children, all ages, will come running up to me and say, when's the next session, and then that opens opportunities for chatting about other things that are important to them. And that bridge has been really key. The council offered us a chance to do a pilot project for older teenagers in the town hall, so that they've got a space to hang out. So this building's in the centre of Chipping Norton, and the picture with the wooden furniture, that's actually the boardroom where the town council meet. If you look at that, have a think about, you know, what sort of person would feel confident to go in there and raise their views to the town council and say, you know, this is something I feel passionate about for my town. Certainly I would find it quite daunting. And we discovered that actually the majority of the young people that came to the youth club had never set foot in the town hall at all, even though there's various clubs and activities that do take part there. They certainly hadn't been downstairs, and they hadn't gone into the exclusive boardroom where the town council meets. So I asked special permission from the mayor, could we please do a boardroom takeover? And we put on a horror movie for Halloween. We played table tennis on their nice oval table. We had a lovely bulldog came and played football with one of the lads who'd campaigned to have 2 football goals put in at the park. And they still said, yeah, we really want to do some cooking. So we've got food from the larder. We've done DIY pot noodles and activities like that. And it might seem a bit random, but these were all things that the teenagers said that they were keen to do. And it was a way of really helping them to feel like they own that space. This is their town council. And the town council are also answerable to them and their needs. So by hopefully making them really feel confident about that space and feel they can almost do what they like in it, that will give them the confidence to break down those barriers and be able to say to the town council, do you know what? This is something that we really feel passionate about, and we really want to see this happening. So it has been probably one of the most challenging projects I've engaged on. I feel like every setback we could have had probably has happened at some point, including my car breaking down, faithfully as it turned out. Right on the day we did a big community engagement project, we had 15 different stall holders all came to the park for a big opening, and that was the day my car decided it didn't want to go. So luckily it was good weather. I didn't need the gazebo, and we just bundled everything in the back of another car and did that one. I did find it very difficult to make those initial relationships and break in. And I think, as Usk says, if you've got young people that you already know and have that relationship with, that's a really good starting point. You can sort of seed things around that. But it does take a long time to build up that trust in those relationships. And the amount of extra paperwork with safeguarding. So we have children, we aimed it at teenagers. We actually have a very wide age range that comes to the park, including, so our youngest wasn't born when we started this 18 months ago. So that he'll come on the hip of one of his older siblings. So we do need to be really careful about our risk assessments and our safeguarding on that. Young people don't have 5 years to wait while we set up funding and respond to what they said their needs were. So trying to be really, really quick, proactive and agile is quite a challenge. It's an exciting one though, and it keeps things fresh constantly. But trying to find funding that is that open-ended, that you can keep adapting it to what they want, can be challenging. But the positives by far outweigh those challenges. The bonds that we've created across the town have been massive, and just watching these young people being empowered and some of the positive comments that they come out with, things they just wouldn't have ever expected to do. Watching children who haven't been in school, who have autism, who have difficulty building relationships with people, working with, we had a green woodworker come in and do some bodging with them, and just watching them have the confidence to try something like that and feel good about themselves and think, yeah, this is something I can do, and perhaps I can go to the town fair when he's next there and have another go. So that's been amazing, and it's really helped generate more volunteers. I think people are really keen. I think everybody recognises that teenagers got a really raw deal in the pandemic, and are keen to help and keen to get on board. So it's really sort of rejuvenated what we do. And then my final bit was, so for advice in terms of starting up, if you could bolt on to an existing group that's already got safeguarding and those things in place, that's probably going to be a quicker and easier way in. We really wanted to try and engage with young people that were not engaging with anyone, so we set ourselves quite a high challenge at the beginning. Housing associations are often a good place for funding, and they might also be able to direct you to other funding, as do local youth networks. So we're members of Oxfordshire Youth, and they've been really good. Initially, they were running our DBS checks for us. We've now registered to run them ourselves, so that speeds up the process a little bit as well. And yeah, just go for it. If you've got young people on board, you've got a whole new set of energy and ideas, and you know that what you're doing is relevant and important, and it gives you that enthusiasm, I think, to keep going, even when you're having sort of setbacks. So yeah, that's it from me.
Thank you so much, Cara. That was so inspiring to hear about everything you've been able to do in such a short time. That's our 3 speakers tonight. I think you'll agree they've all been really rich and really had a lot to share with us. We have some time now for questions and discussion. So while you're thinking about what you'd like to know, just feel free to raise your hand or pop something in the chat. I'll maybe get the ball rolling with a question of my own. I'm really struck by how these young people are, and that you've been working with, and the projects that you've been working with, they're not just making an impact on young people and the lives of young people in the community, but the whole community, you know, things like pathways and events and connections and awareness raising. I wonder if you've got any advice on working across generations. A lot of transition groups feel like they have an older age profile, and maybe feel a little bit daunted about bridging that gap between the group that they currently have and the kind of young people they'd like to get involved. Do you have any words of wisdom for them?
Is it okay if I jump? Oh, sorry.
You jump in, Eli. Go ahead. And
You go.
I love this question so much, because this is one of the reasons why I think more young people being involved in the group is so important. We have, I'd say, kind of a medium-ish problem, big problem with I guess, perception of young people in the community, and also antisocial behaviour in the community. And it can be quite hard to kind of bridge the gap between some of the elderly members of the community who can only associate the like antisocial behaviour with all of the young people. And I think some of the projects that we're doing that might not necessarily directly involve young people are kind of helping to bridge this gap. Like when we've had swift walks. I hope I've said the right bird. It is Swiss, because I keep calling it swallows. I'm not a twitcher or whatever the word is. And also the growing projects, at least personally, and then with like kind of my friendship group, we've never really had a conversation with any of the kind of older population of our area, and then me like bringing my friends along to like meetings before has really allowed us to kind of get to know the people that we see every day on the street, but then both of us are kind of like too scared to go good morning because we're like, we don't know what the perception of the other person is. And I just say, yeah, kind of like what you were saying earlier, if you have one person who's passionate, one young person who's passionate about the project, then I'd say hop on that, because if you live like us in a rural community, they know everyone else, and it really just leads to kind of your network spreading. And yeah, sorry, that was a lot of
No, that was perfect. Thank you, Eli, for sharing that. Raechal.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, we've definitely seen it. Although we didn't sort of set out to, we now see it as an amazing opportunity for like intergenerational sort of bridging. So especially with the fashion work, they really wanted to run like a repair session. And we've sort of reached out to the repair cafe and some local people who we found who were kind of doing sort of could do simple repairs, who all happen to be older ladies. And the vibes and the energy in that room was just amazing, because you had like older people who had all the skills, who were just so delighted that there was a room full of young people who wanted to learn, like wanted them to teach them what they knew, because they hadn't been taught it from anywhere else. And the young people were like, the old people are really nice. Like, I thought they were just going to be really grumpy and horrible, and so you can just see people's perceptions changing of, you know, what, and because there's not that many opportunities anymore for that intergenerational connection, I don't think so. That's just a really lovely co-benefit of doing the youth work, I think. And yeah, the same with the growing stuff. The 3 sort of planting beds that we've got are actually on the street in St Paul's, and the number of people who stopped to kind of be like, oh, what's this group of young people up to, and then we're like, oh, you're growing fruit and veg, amazing. Like, and then, you know, giving tips, or like, oh, this is what I do in my garden or whatever. So yeah, it's a really lovely opportunity for sort of bridge building in communities.
Great, thanks, Raechal. Cara, did you have anything to add on that?
No, I think similar. So the 2 main youth projects have been sort of ring-fenced youth time, with adults coming in as sort of guests, invited guests, rather than the main focus. And then we've also got other community provision. So we've run a swap shop and various sort of nature walks and activities where young people are welcome to come along as well, or people have been bringing their children along. And so it brings in that intergenerational element. But I absolutely agree. I think societies need to be connected, and hear the voices. You know, everybody needs to be able to hear the voices of others, so that whatever solutions are being found, everybody's needs are being met to a degree. I think the more we're working in isolation, the more the solutions are not what's needed. So yeah, and I think it's a really positive thing to work on.
But you raise a really interesting point there about time and space. You know, it's really good to have time together for young people as well, to kind of explore things together, as well as spaces where they can connect with others. I wonder who else has a question. Martin.
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you very much indeed. That was really inspiring. I've made lots and lots of notes. Really great to hear all the different projects that are going on. I had a question around sort of one set of organisations that I don't think we did hear about, which was schools, and whether anybody has sort of managed, with, you know, teachers being so overworked and under pressure, whether they have played a role and whether you've built relations with them, or is it best to try and reach the kids and the youth groups outside of the sort of school environment? And just before anyone answers, the one project that I'd sort of throw into the mix, which I think has been very successful for us to engage with young people, has been the annual apple pressing that we do in the town centre, because the apple press has got lots of moving parts, so people just walking by can come and get involved. There's lots of chopping, there's drinking lovely apple juice at the end, and it's a great place to have conversations, and it does bring sort of families and it brings young people in. So if anyone's sort of got access to an apple press, when we try to lend it out to schools and to anybody else that wants it, we got some funding for one, but that's just one more project I would sort of throw into the mix with all the other wonderful ones that are going on. But my question was around schools.
Great. Thank you so much, Martin. It's a shame that Jane has just had to drop off the call from Buxton, because I know that Buxton has had a couple of times had a very successful schools conference with over 100 school children coming along to it. So maybe one to follow up with them at another time. But I wonder if any of our speakers have experience with skills. We've focused really on young people outside of kind of formal education tonight, but we could maybe run another Skillshare. I said Skillshare. Skillshare, just about working with schools. But Eli, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go on ahead.
Oh,
You
right.
go.
Sorry. So I was just gonna give like a little bit of context. Usk hasn't had a youth centre, I think, since I was born, but I'm not quite sure on that one. But since I could use it, so we kind of realised early on, and one of the members of our group realised early on, especially, that interacting with the primary school was the main way in with young people in the area. So we do have a good relationship with the head teacher of our local primary school in terms of running kind of independent events like the nature walk that I discussed earlier, in terms of the partnership with Gwent Wildlife Trust. That's in school, on school property, because out the back of us primary school is like a wooded area. And then kind of leading on to that, the logo challenge was kind of like a part of the primary school. What's the word for it? It's like when you have like a week off timetable. That was one of the activities that was kind of carried out in the summer, and then it was an event for the young people to go to when they came back after the term. So that's kind of our interaction with the primary school. It's more on a limited event by event basis, but yeah, having the connection with them was at least very important for us, because that's kind of the key hub of young people in our area.
And just quickly, we were expecting about, I don't know, 30 logos to come back from the school, and it went through every class. We were there with like 150 logos.
It was,
so it was great. It was great, but it was like, oh.
It was a lot of logos. Like,
yeah.
Good luck judging them.
Great.
massive that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Raechal.
Yeah, I was just gonna, so we do some work through the Cheltenham Educational Partnership, which is secondary schools, but we have also been in primary schools as well, and usually that was through either there sort of being a connection, you know, someone knowing about the projects that we were running or something, and then being invited to come in and do an assembly or, you know, talk about something. And then actually what we did do with a local parish council was actually sort of develop a thing that we could bring into schools, which was a kind of, we called it like a climate handprint, because I personally have like a huge issue with the model of, you know, people going into schools to do sort of talks about climate and the environment, and still presenting like individual actions for kids to do when we know that they're not in control of the household budget. They're often, you know, they don't have the power to make change often. So, you know, making them feel guilty about having to be dropped to school in a car, or, you know, for their parents' sort of travel choice or whatever, is not going to work. It's just, in shame and guilt aren't effective behavior change tools. So instead we changed it to like a handprint, which was really emphasizing what they could do, like what was within their sort of sphere of influence to control, and especially within the school environment. And because I think, and Cara, you touched on it a bit with yours, like it sort of snowballs from that, changing one thing and then they realize that they can do it, and then it almost becomes like oh, what else could we do? So really emphasizing that, I think, is so important with children, that it's not this is not their issue to solve. Like, there are so many grown-ups working on the solutions, because I think that's really important for them to hear as well, that it's not, you know, they're not being expected to solve a global crisis. So, and yeah, then the other thing that I would say is that it is difficult. As you say, teachers are extremely overworked, underpaid, just don't have the capacity for a lot of this stuff now. So I think if you can, as a group, have almost like a sort of menu of, we can come in, we can help you with a wildlife area, we can do do an assembly about what the group's doing, because sometimes that's enough. It's just seeing adults acting is really, you know, good for young people's mental health. So yeah, sometimes having like a set thing, and then yeah, looking for educational partnerships. So rather than, you know, that's a lot of footwork to go to individual school. We're obviously a town, so it's slightly different to a village or a rural area. Rather than going to individual schools, trying to, if there is a kind of group, often in towns, like all the head teachers are part of an educational partnership, approaching them instead, because I think school leaders are seeing that they need to be doing more around this, and that's mainly led by the young people themselves asking for it. That, you know, it's not good enough to have an eco club who never gets funding or any power to change anything. So yeah, I think it's on their agenda more often.
So in the chat there, Nick has mentioned that Planet Heswell has been involved in the Eco Schools programme with a local primary school. Nick, I don't know if you want to say anything more about that, but that might be something you could check out, whether your local schools are involved in that programme. And I know that Sustainable St Albans, they have a Sust Fest every year, like a sustainability festival, and they have had a schools Sust Fest, which is just for schools for a week, and they've managed to engage a lot of local schools and get them all doing activities in 1 week and feeling like they're part of a bigger something. Are there any other questions? Anybody who, lots of people indicated they hadn't done much and they were wanting to get started in this area. Vera?
Yeah, so I work, I do a lot of engagement and get a lot of community groups up and running. That's what sort of my background is. But I know what people really love to hear is warts and all, the things that bombed. So I'd like from each one, I would love to hear something you tried that just didn't work, and just tell us not to do it. Because I think those are actually also the learning moments where you walk into something. I've facilitated for one person because nobody else showed up, things like that. It'd be lovely to know some things that, specifically within the youth context. Tried it, don't try it type of advice. That would be lovely to know. So, Cara, do you want to start?
Just gonna...
You're very thoughtful, Cara.
No, I'm still thinking. Come back to me.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay. Raechal, is there anything you've tried in Cheltenham that's bombed?
I think something from Cara's presentation really resonated with me, and if I had my time over again, and if we get to do it again, that I would completely change, is that we got invited to go and present the results of that massive survey to the Borough Council, which everybody was very excited about that. It was like, yeah, this is our chance to go in and sort of say what we really think, and the room was completely overwhelming, like exactly what you showed, Cara, but on steroids. So it looks like Parliament. It looks like the House of Commons. So you've got green leather, like massive throne chairs, like you couldn't talk unless you press the button in front of you so that you were on the speaker system, and councillors came who just wanted to be there so that they could put in their newsletter. I spoke to young people this week, regardless of whether they actually listened or not. So I think a lot the youth, the young people who came, the feedback was, I felt overwhelmed. I felt like they weren't really listening to us. So kind of what's really interesting is one thing that's come out of that is that there isn't a youth council anymore in Cheltenham. That was part of a bonfire however many years ago. So in the wake of that experience, I was kind of like said to the councillors who had come along and to the climate team at the council, this can't be a token exercise. Like, what is you don't have a youth council. Is there an appetite to restart that and create something that is something with power where they get to do stuff? And then going back to the young people afterwards, I was like, we're not doing that again. That was not a comfortable space to be in. And if councillors want to come and talk to us, they can come and talk on our turf and be the ones who feel like they're in the sort of question seat. So that is something that I would, if I had my time over, I would flip. But yeah, I think turnout can fluctuate, and we know, yeah, we do term time only because it's that group of people. So, and exams and part-time work and much more exciting social lives than I have get in the way. So yeah, it's kind of just trial and error sometimes of running stuff and being like, okay, we won't do that again, and then doing something else that you think no one's going to come to, and 250 people turn up, and then you're like, oh my god.
And ask, is there anything that you thought, oh, that didn't really work so well, and so things that you've tried?
If I go first, it's not. I guess I'm kind of taking your question as like what not to do, because it's not necessarily something that's happened with the group. It kind of did on a smaller scale, but I've experienced it more just in general. But I just think groups should know that speaking to your MP, your county councillors, your local councillors, town councillors, like Raechal was saying, is not the be all and end all all of any youth participation, because most of the time you're in the room and you know for a fact at that moment you're going to have no change, because like events that I'm thinking of, I know that like the survey that they're trying to get young people's feedback on, well, it closes the evening of, so you have no chance to go home and think on it at all. And so I just think it's really important to understand that you can create a lot of local change without necessarily having to like kind of put the top rung of like the ladder being, you know, your county councillors acknowledging you, when really it's good that you have open communication with them, but that does need to be like the thing that, oh, I always get idioms wrong, but the thing that causes your group to fall apart, you know,
Yeah.
it's not as important. And I guess we maybe experienced it a little bit as a group, but yeah, in other like youth activism settings and in the youth council, that is kind of the experience of being a young person, then talking with the people in the influential roles.
Yeah, oh, that's a good tip actually. Thanks.
The thing that
Cara?
oh, go on. Sorry, probably out of time.
No, go for it, Cam. Finish.
I was going to say the thing that I was going to add to that was it would have been interesting. We're only at the start of our journey really, but it would have been interesting to kind of do like a test and instead of doing one big event where we tried to get a sort of big impact in the community, would be to split it up and do it over multiple weeks, same place, same time type thing, and see how that might have changed it up, and to see if that would attract different types of people into the event. So, but we don't know how that would have been, but it would have been, if we again, maybe we would do it like that instead of running all in one day.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
So we've been moving really fast in us, like trying to do so many things all at once. And I think maybe there's a risk of skipping over some of the like more traditional ways of working in the community. One thing I felt bombed for us a little bit with the community growing project. So we managed to get access to the Cubs, and we had a really nice session with them and like finding out what they'd like to grow and everything. But what we hadn't really done well was speak to the right people who were running the Cubs, you know, the town council and everything, to make sure that we properly had access to that piece of land. We thought we had access and we didn't have access. So we've had to, you know, we've had to just leave those young people with that idea of a community garden, and we haven't been able to go ahead with it. So.
No.
Cara, anything to add?
So I think the main bombings were right at the beginning, in that trying to drum up that initial engagement, and I would put on activities at the youth club that I thought they'd really like to engage with this. I can sit and have a chat with them while they do it, and I just wasn't cool. They did not want to talk to me. Barely wanted to talk to each other. They were mostly just kind of in their safe zone on screens, and you know, me trying to be cool and say, right, let's put stuff on screens that they can then access it that way, because that's where they want to be. And that really didn't hit. How to engage with people that don't want to. Are you still getting
a
me?
little bit fritzy, but keep going.
I'm unstable. It says I'm unstable. And I think, was it Martin saying about the apple press? And it made me think, so I think what then we found was most effective was being outdoors somewhere where we're there on their territory. They're coming of their own choice to join in with what we're doing for as long as they want to do. I think there's a sense that if you enter a building, you are sort of entering somebody else's set of rules and their territory, and you sort of lost some of your autonomy then. So I definitely found that was a lot more effective, to be outside and they could watch for a bit and they could come over for a bit and they could just do a little bit and then go off and play football again or something. There was no obligation from us to say, that's it, you're here for the session, you've got to do this, and you've got to do it in this particular way. So that was the path we then stayed on as much as we could.
No, really great tips actually. That's lovely to hear. Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
that's brilliant. We're nearly out of time. I have a quick. Oh, Nick has jump in. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question, and it was partly something that was based around. I know Cam, Eli, and Mike. You sort of introduced yourselves as making a film, and then I was listening to Cara talking about the the young people were looking at the screens a lot of the time. And I was just wondering if there was any sort of ways that anybody has tried in terms of reaching out to younger people through mediums that perhaps feel less threatening than going into a big sort of town hall meeting or somewhere that feels alien to them. But if there's sort of a much lower barrier to sort of looking at something on, I don't know whether it's TikTok or whatever, but some ways to reach out to younger people in the community. I'll just be interested to hear any thoughts or experiences that people have had on that.
Anybody want to jump in on that one?
So, oh yeah, if it's okay if I speak.
Yes.
I'd say as a group, we engage with Facebook a lot because that's the easiest way for us to communicate with most of the community. And also we flyered, if that's correct, like all of the houses in the community, because of course there aren't too many to make that like an impossible mission. But I do hope in the new year, I've been saying about this for a long time, and I just need to, like somebody was saying earlier, exams have been mad, have the time to set up an Instagram account, because I just think it's like a more common social media that young people use. But I think there is success to be had with TikTok. That was kind of something that was used with my local youth council for a bit. The issue is sometimes seeing adults in a space that is like young people kind of feel as theirs can sometimes mean that they kind of not only don't engage with the content, but also kind of have a somewhat aggressive response to the content. So I think, yeah, in terms of TikTok, it's important to be aware of the trolling that you're going to experience as a result of posting things on that platform. But yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are specific social medias that young people tend to use more, and that those are social medias that you're trying to access young people with.
Yeah, just to echo that, Instagram is sort of the hub for the youth group information, or like, you know, anything that we've got going on is mainly Instagram. So, and yeah, I don't well, I don't think my children would let me do anything on TikTok, but yeah, that would just be mega cringe. But if one of the youth group wanted to do it, then we'd be like, go for it, like, you know. And I think that would be cool. So, and I have loads of them do the Be Real thing. So, and like it often just happens to be in a youth group meeting. So I have been in a lot of Be Reals, even though I have no idea like what it is or how to use it. So
That's
embrace
great.
the cringe. Sometimes you have to embrace the cringe, but
Lean into it. Danny, you had a tip for us all.
Yes, indeed. I used to work with an organization, so full confession, full disclosure here, called Lifebeat, and they offer some creative practice training, which is amazing for working with young people. And I know that they offer bursary places as well, and it's the kind of thing that might really support people who are in transition groups that want to get more confidence in working with young people. So I'll drop a little link to the organization there. I'm not sure when the next trainings are, but definitely worth checking out. And they've also got lots of videos and ideas of things that might be useful too.
Thanks so much. So we're just coming towards the end of our time together. I want to give each of the speakers the chance to share a closing thought. And if I might sneak another little question into that might influence your closing thought. I wonder, is there anything that would support you in developing this work with young people, or in being able to continue it? Anything that we as a movement might be able to do to kind of help you to succeed in this area? So either speak to that, or if there's something else which has really come up for you in the discussion that we've been having this evening that you would like to leave us with, we would love to hear it. And let us go to Cara first. We'll maybe go in the reverse order that we did when we were speaking. Cara.
I think connecting with other people and having conversations is just so helpful, and taking part in events like this evening, because I think it's always so easy to look at how much there is to do, how many things you want to do, what you still need to put in place, and to just take a moment to sit and think, oh, actually we've achieved quite a lot over the last however many months, and to take time to celebrate that, because I think working with young people, there's such a lot of positives that come out of it, and it just helps you take a few minutes to just take stock and look at where you're going. So I've been jotting notes down as well this evening of things that I'll take away from tonight, and so thank you very much everyone for coming and being part of that.
Thank you, Cara. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Usk, and I think each of you might have a little closing thought for us, maybe.
It is kind of similar, really, because it's like just being invited to speak and just bringing us back to this topic, because I think we haven't really had a conversation in Usk again about work that we did at that event. I think we got a bit burnt out, and then so hearing some of the ideas here and yeah, just getting the encouragement, I feel a bit more like this is something we can go back to. Right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if I go next, yeah, I'd agree. I really like these kinds of meetings because I feel like they kind of invigorate you with the idea that you want to do more things, and kind of like you get ideas for future projects, and also I guess highlighting the importance of like links, and like the UK is large, but it's also like not too large, like lots of different places for other people, and like even this meeting highlighted to me that like I know some young people involved in the youth council, for instance, in Cheltenham, who I don't think maybe are aware of the project, and who I think would be a good idea to message, because they're supposed to be having kind of a strong role in the area. So yeah, I think that's the most important part. Yeah, the relationships that you have with other people doing similar things.
Yeah, just Dad, it was just great to see other projects and what they've been doing, and that they're sort of in different places to us and further on the line. And yeah, it's inspiring for us, and to see what's successful with them. So yeah, it's really good to see.
Raechal.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate what's already been said, just that it's hard work, but it's a complete privilege to host the group. And I'm sure, like, sometimes, like anybody who's working in and around climate, there are really tough days sometimes, and I never fail to leave that group without feeling like just rejuvenated and like ready to go and ready to take on the world. And that is entirely for how amazing that the group of young people are. But I also think it's really important, and I've said this to them on multiple occasions, like if at any point one of them wants to step up in that role of host and host that space, I really want to be able to do that. And I think that's really important as well, is knowing when to let go and like when to pass the baton on to the next person, and not hold something so tightly that it dies. So I think that letting things go and not being a single point of failure is really important. And then the thing that would make our life easier, I think it was really telling for us when we had the pop-up space in the summer last year. It definitely changed the vibe of the group, because the space was their own, and we had like paper all over one wall, or they could write ideas, they could write stuff on it, and it would still be there for the next session. And like you could see the young people were a lot more relaxed in the space, because they knew they could leave stuff there, or it felt like it was their space. So I think that's just made us really hungry to have our permanent home, which we're still fundraising towards, and we know it's sort of years away, but we are just working really hard towards fundraising for that, because I do think actually the quote that I was going to give was so Andy Goldring, who runs the Climate Action Leeds Hub, his quote that he gave at the launch was that we have museums to showcase the past, we need spaces to practice the future. And we need those spaces in which to practice the future, and we need the future being given over those spaces. So like Cara, like your takeover of that boardroom, we need spaces where we can be like, what do we need to do? Let's make it happen.
Wow, brilliant words to finish with. Raechal, thank you so much. I just want to say a huge thank you to our speakers this evening. I have certainly learnt a lot. I've got lots of ideas thinking about my own situation. We're just going to launch a super short poll to find out how the session was for you and help us plan more Skillshares in the future. So before we finish up, please do take a minute to answer. And I think Danny's going to make that appear just now.
Can you see that? Is that on the screen for people? Please thumbs up if you can. Not yet.
I'm not seeing any thumbs up. Let me see if I can do it from here. Oh.
Looks like it's going now. Yeah. Great. Okay, fantastic. So while people are finishing that, let me just tell you about a few other really fantastic events that we've got coming up and some other ways that you can keep the conversation going. And at the start of this session, we mentioned that this is part of a series of monthly Skillshares. You can watch the past sessions on our YouTube channel. I think Chris might just pop a link in the chat so that you've got access to that. But we're actually going to have a little pause on Skillshares because we have a couple of big events coming up with Transition Together, and we'd love to know what topics you'd like us to focus on in the future as well. So if you have any suggestions, please do contact us. You can drop suggestions in the chat now, or you can also reach us on our training email, which Chris will hopefully drop into the chat bar too. So let me just quickly tell you about the events that we've got coming up. We have Transition Alive, which is a series of online events to explore the challenge of our time, the potential of our movement, and a renewed shared vision for our future, asking what would a just transition look like? What would happen if we could scale up our impact, and what's in the transition and movement that we want for the future? And so those dates are the 28th of February, 5th of March, and 12th of March. We also have working with councils, which is a burning issue for many transition groups, as to how to work with your local authority to help unlock change. We heard some really interesting examples tonight in relation to young people. But we have 2 deep dive workshops coming up in February to help you do that. And that's on the 6th and the 13th of February. And we've got training coming up as well. So we have our Launch and Thrive training for transition groups. And our Launch program is open for registration. And you can also register your interest for the Thrive program too. And those links are all on our webpage. So please go pay that a visit, have a little read of the descriptions and see whether there's anything there that could support your group, and register your interest or sign up if you do.
Thanks, Danny. And the best way to make sure you know all the things that we're up to and all the events, supports, funding, training, and all the other things that we're running, and also that other organisations are running that we are highlighting to transition groups, is to make sure you're getting our monthly newsletter. And Danny's going to post the link in the chat just now. And last but not least, we'd love to invite you to continue to connect and discuss your work, struggles, and ideas on our online platform, Vive. If you're not already on it, Vive is an easy to use ethical platform. It's a little bit like Facebook, but without the ads and the algorithms and the clutter of social media. And there are now over 600 transitioners and others involved in community-led change on there, using it to ask questions, to collaborate, to share resources they've found helpful. So it's a great place to continue the conversation about working with young people or anything else that you are working on or you're exploring. So we look forward to seeing you there. And if you have found some of these links and some of the things that have been shared useful, you might want to save the chat just now before the call finishes. And you can do that by opening it up and going down the bottom. There's a little option to save the chat to your own computer. So yeah, over to you, Danny.
Thanks very much, everybody, once again for joining us. I'm going to end that poll now, and I'm also going to share the results with you so that you can see it and have a little look to see the kind of answers from the group. But just, really from the bottom of my heart, really, thank you so much. The speakers to your projects are amazing, and for all that time and effort that you've taken to share your experience with us to help us all. We do hope that you'll keep in touch, and we'll see you all soon.
Fantastic. Goodbye, everybody. If you want to unmute and say cheerio and thank our speakers, that would be great. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye.
Very useful.
Take care,
Goodbye.
everyone. Good night.